All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for those of you who are tuning in. Let me make sure the headphones are on. Hang on one second. All right, everybody, there we go. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we are back and we are continuing to paint. So thank you to those of you who stuck around and found the new link. And we will try to get that available to everybody else as well. So we're gonna go ahead and start our next model session. And if you posted a question previously, if you would like to just restate it in the chat, we'll get it answered for you. Thank you all so much for tuning in and finding us again.
Right now, we are working on new live streaming technology. We're going to be working, we're in the works to getting new live streaming technology because this is, as you can tell, a glitchy system, and we've had it for a long time, and the company doesn't even exist anymore, and I can't update any of the software, so it's time for us to move on. So next time we do one of these live streams, we will be newer and shinier. Woohoo. With a lot more bells and whistles, literally. So
good way to tease what's coming next.
Exactly. We're saving some of our fun things for the next time that we do a live stream, so that when we do it, we can do it right.
Yeah. We share the same brain at this point.
Oh, did she say the same thing?
Tina's just so invested.
Because I know how much time Louis has put into this and how much research he has done. He really puts in like so many hours into this, just so you all know. He really does care about this.
Yeah, I care about all of my peeps and the East Oaks family that lives online. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. And it's so nice to hearing like the reoccurring names that come back.
Oh yeah, isn't that great?
It's just like our little family.
Livia joined
Livia.
And is happy to be watching. Hello. Livia is going to be the newest addition to the studio, and we're all very, very excited to meet in person. And Cookie asks, when are you going to have online mentorship spots again?
That is a very good question. So we will be probably announcing that pretty soon, because some of my mentorships that I have currently, they are about to go through their full cycle. Some will renew, some won't, and so we might have some opening slots coming up very soon. But if you're on our email list, you will get you'll know pretty quickly when our mentorship stuff will be open. So, but we'd love to see you. I keep adding a lot more stuff to the mentorship stuff too, because the technology that I'm using for live streaming for this, I also will be using some of it to help connect with y'all. So which is exciting and fun. I'm looking forward to that.
So at this point in the paintings, it looks like y'all are starting to really lay in skin tones a little bit more. You've sort of resolved your shadow shapes and you're starting to sculpt the form a little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit about your approach at this phase and how you really bring the three-dimensionality out?
I am still in a cover the canvas stage, but I am trying to think about basically shadow, midtone, light, and highlight. I'm just trying to combine that idea with color, and basically once I cover everything, then I'll try to sculpt a little bit more with transitions and edges. But essentially, I'm basically, by thinking of shadow, midtone, light, and highlight, then form will kind of naturally start to sculpt.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. What I'm doing right now is I'm starting to mix up some of my deeper shadow color of what that's going to look like. And I've got the drawing far enough along to where I feel comfortable to keep tweaking it as I pursue color, just because this is a kind of a time management game. So now that I'm kind of going through and looking around, making sure that I've got things in the right place, but now I'm like mixing color for those things, and I go from shadow and then I kind of go into midtone, and then I kind of touch highlight at the very beginning, so I kind of go, this is what I'm shooting for, this is where I'm starting, and then I kind of sculpt the form into those moments. So
I usually like to be a little bit more methodical in my approach, meaning I go like, I try not to jump around this much, but because we are pressed for time with an alla prima one session, I have to just do it anyway and adapt as I go. But if this were a longer session, it wouldn't be quite so spotty, you know what I mean? But sometimes you just need to make the notes as they go.
And our next question, did you all do lots of master copies when you were learning, and how important is that in the learning process?
I think it's a great tool. I did all the not all, literally all the bards, but I did bards.
I did all the bards.
Bards.
Hey, somebody out there
Some people do,
that.
yeah. I did a lot of bards when I was a student at Florence Academy, and they were great for learning the language, like learning what does a soft edge look like, what does a shadow shape look like, you know, things, just understanding what a translated from life language is like. And so they can be really useful. I did more portrait ones and drawing ones also when I was at Florence Academy, and found that they were so useful just for example, practicing skin tones. Like, what does a unified light shape look like? What does a skin tone actually look like when you mix it up? And it can be very, very useful, and to see also what information was included, but more importantly, what information wasn't. Like, what information was compressed. And so, you know, definitely look at master copies for that advice. They're also great for understanding different color harmony relationships. I find that I don't do as many now, but I always still look at old master paintings and try to dissect what's working, what's not. I might not make the copy, but I'll always, you know, keep looking at what's been done before and why does it work, and try to figure that out.
Yeah, that's great.
When I first started at East Oaks, one of my first projects that Louis kind of gave me was to do these really small 5x7 inch master copies, which ended up becoming more like color studies, because I was focusing on learning how to mix the proper colors and where to place the proper colors. So I did, I think 3. I did like a Bouguereau, John Singer Sargent, And I did a Michael Klein, and I did a Jeremy Lipking one. So there are different ways to do like the master copies. You don't necessarily have to do like the full painting, or you can do a segment of it, or you can either do like what I did, just a smaller version, like more abbreviated, so you kind of get the whole gist of the painting, but it takes less time and it's a little bit more digestible because it's smaller.
Yeah, that's good. That's very, very helpful practice, I think. Because it was one of those things that I felt like I needed help with, and when I started doing that, I felt like I learned quite a bit. What I wanted to know, and needed to know.
I did a Fontaine Latour master copy of, it's like fruit and flowers on a table, and it was so useful for understanding color and how he used and how to simplify light shapes but still have like subtle transitions within that, especially when you're dealing with something that has a lot of color. So if you're painting like an apple or pepper or something like that, like, you know, that's something that's really red, you know, how can you still turn the form and feel like there's variety when there's also that unity? And so that kind of paradox of it being unified, but also, you know, interesting and varied. And so that was something I did after graduation that I thought was really helpful in discovering a lot of things with complementary colors. You know, you kind of figure out when you do it, you know, how, like what tricks people are, I say tricks as if it's a hack, but it's not a hack. It's more just like tools. Yeah, what tools people are using.
I wish there were hacks.
Wouldn't it be so much easier?
AI.
Yeah, there you go.
And Cookie asked a good follow-up question to that, which is, can we do master copies of living artists or only of those in the public domain?
I mean, I'm not mic'd up. I'm also not a lawyer, is what I was about to say. But the short answer is yes.
Yeah. I wonder what the, like, I don't really know what the proper, like, what's the word, legal thing to do with that. I don't know. I did 2 color studies. I did one of Jeremy Lipking, and then I did a Michael Klein. And then I think it's mainly like, just make sure that you say that it's not your original idea and that you're doing a copy of someone, and maybe probably don't sell it because it's not your original idea.
So my understanding is that it would be fair use if you're using it for educational purposes only, which means you're not using it to market yourself as an artist and you are not selling it. But yes, a lot of really famous living artists, master copies of other famous living artists, who you do master copies of, I think, is really a function of what kind of work you actually want to produce. And if you want to do something that really does have like a classical vibe, makes sense that you would study old masters. Awesome.
Stuck on that main chest hair. I've got
Yeah, just blame it on your chest hair. That's what we'll do. Thanks, Louie.
I gotta add some sort of masculinity.
Yeah, because that's what art needs, more masculinity. How much of that was audible before I got a mic? A little bit.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay.
I thought you meant the chest hair to bottom.
No, please, yeah, I don't want to hold all that on the.
Oh, okay, cool. So, before I try and fix this horrendous shadow shape, where even was I? What was I even saying?
You're saying
What?
it was like under fair use, don't sell it. The kind of copy that you do depends on the kind of work that you want to make.
Right. So like if you really want to go in a classical direction, you will probably be doing a lot of old master copies. But if you only are really interested in contemporary work, you probably do want to be doing master copies of contemporary artists who are influencing your style. So yeah, it's a really phenomenal tool. And I think there is a really common misconception that if you're doing master copy, it is only old masters, which can be useful, but you're leaving a lot on the table potentially.
Yeah. To add what to
Mic swap.
Eventually, East Oaks is actually going to have the technology that it absolutely needs, like a mic. So, anyway, to add to what you're saying, it is completely legal to sell your master copy, even if it is of a present day artist. But is it ethical?
I don't think that's true, Louie.
It depends on how you sell it.
I'm almost positive it's true because each piece is considered its own individual work of art.
But it is still a derivative work of the original artist, and so they're entitled to what you earn from selling that piece.
Well, we'll have to look it up. You know.
Well, so
Probably.
my 2 cents on this, I think it was about a year ago, Hollis Dunlop was in Italy and was just walking around and went gallery hopping and found a copy of one of his paintings that someone had done on exhibition in a gallery that was listed as for sale. Granted, this was abroad, so maybe there's different laws at play, I don't know, but it was not specified that it was a copy, and the person ended up having to take it down. So I think the bottom line is, you know, if you're going to do a master copy and try to sell it, do your homework.
Well, I most certainly was going to say, to complete the thought, was that regardless, it's not ethical. Mm-hmm. Regardless if it is legal or not, I don't think it's good practice. Yeah. Is what I was going to get to.
Especially if you like look up to the artist that you are looking up to, you know, you probably
Don't want to do that to them.
yeah.
Copyright law is a weird thing, man. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like little weird stuff that happens with it.
Millie says, so glad that you're back. Question. I've been learning and painting for a couple of years now, and I have tons of studies I use to see my progress. Do you have any suggestions about what to do with these?
I would keep them for as long as you can. I find that having an abundance of older work might be like maybe not the most fun thing to look at for yourself, because you probably want to like put it in the closet and never look at it again. But I think that having something to compare your progress to is really great, because it's always best to compare your progress to yourself only and no one else, because it's your art making and it's your career and it's no one else's, and it doesn't do you any good to compare your progress to other people. So I would hold on to them, and just so that way you can look back in a few years and be able to see how far you've come from them. And if you have a piece that you think maybe you're ready to let go of, that you think is ready to sell, then try selling it if you don't want it anymore.
I love that. Words. I love having a few pieces to show yourself how far you've come. Mm-hmm. I think it's really cool. When I moved from Florence back to Raleigh, I had to sort through all my work to see, you know, what I was going to keep and what I was going to toss, and I made sure I kept some of my old paintings and drawings, like my first pencil drawings at the academy I kept, just because like it's so cool to see all of that, the work that I did paid off. And so it's a nice kind of like reminder to keep going. And it's cool to see for your own self, like Tina said, like you're not comparing yourself to other people, you know, your journey to other people. It's all about the progress that you're making compared to yourself. So it's good. I think it's good to have that kind of reminder.
All right, and with that, we have reached our next model break. So thank you again for those of you who are tuning in, and keep sending in your questions, and we will be back shortly. Thanks so much.
Sweet. All right, everybody, we're back. So what session is this? How many sessions we have left? I'm not even paying attention.
It's 8, so.
It's 8, so we got an hour?
Okay.
All right, time to really crank.
Power paint.
Go, go, go.
Yeah, now we all rush.
Yeah,
Good decisions.
yes, exactly. What do y'all know the actor's name that he played like on Stranger Things and a whole lot of other things? He's like the Russian expert that has sort of balding a bit and hilarious guy. He also is on Community, I think.
I feel like my mom would know this answer.
Anyway, there's like this little sound bite that I think of every time somebody says something like that, where he just is like running off into the distance and he's going, "Let's make poor decisions," like because he's like talking about like connecting back to his youth. So that's what I feel like right now. It's like, okay, we have this much time. Let's make poor decisions.
Absolutely. Only good decisions are made in the dungeon.
That's right.
Add that to the quote list.
So for those of you that don't know,
Yeah, you
might want
to explain that.
might want to explain the film studio and my personal studio is in the basement in kind of what looks like a storm bunker shelter that we have turned into the studio, and it most certainly resembles a dungeon, especially considering that we have 2 skeletons in here as well. So all we need really is like a stalactite drip, sound that happens in the background.
Just need a leak.
Yeah, exactly. Just need a leak. Just a good leak would do it great. So anyway, so that's all about. We call this room the dungeon, and can't wait to have like a Halloween party where we like turn it into a real haunted looking dungeon. It'd be like a lot of fun.
How fun would it be if we dressed up for the PFL around Halloween? We had like costumes. We were like.
I'll have to make sure. Maybe Chelsea, you should bring one of your cameras over so we can have enough camera feeds so that we can have like a wide angle.
Yeah.
That would kind of be a blast.
That would be
really
awesome.
enjoy that. By the way, Sarah's doing great, isn't she?
Yeah.
Statue.
We had a little bit of a follow-up question really quick from the whole copyright issue that we talked about before.
Oh, great.
Someone asked, just to clarify, what about your free photo references? Can we use those as references and then sell and cite the photographer?
Well, the photographer would be me, and you can certainly cite me. No, no. These are open to the public. We allow these to be used by the public, so so that you have something that you can paint. Especially during the pandemic, I think it was really helpful for people to be able to have some reference images, considering that everybody was kind of bunkered down, to be able to pull from. So it's part of what we want to do to contribute to our community, to allow you to have the opportunity to paint from these. So yes, please do. And if you want, you can tag E Stokes if you post it, and send us what you've made. We'd love to see it.
Milau asks, do you have a certain quote or mantra that you live by when working on your drawing or painting? Maybe a lesson or insight that really stuck with you and you keep returning to?
Be specific.
Be specific.
That's for me, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's mostly just I need to keep reminding myself that, and so. And then soft but specific, that's another one.
That is Erica has brought that to East Oak Studio, and it is repeated many times throughout our studio daily. Soft but specific. Really like that one. Maybe I should. I don't know if I do. Anybody else have mantras that kind of go on in your head?
I feel like mine isn't like that inspirational, but mine is always like step back.
Yeah.
That's because I always forget to do that.
Speaking of.
I think I've maybe said it on here before, but my favorite quote is the famous Chuck Close quote that inspiration is for amateurs, professionals just show up and get to work.
Oh, that's a good one.
Which is, I don't know, on like the sluggish days where you're kind of feeling like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
It really there's something to be said for just, showing up and getting it done.
Yeah.
There's another similar one where it's like inspiration finds you working or something like that,
Yeah.
where I don't know who said it, but same idea.
I think I also have to remind myself to use a mirror. Like step back, think about edges, use a mirror. Wendy asks, question about the monthly subscription. Will I get a reference photo of the live paint-alongs?
If you're talking about these live paint-alongs, then you actually will have access to them even if you're not a subscriber. It's one of our things that we do for free for you. All you need to do is just sign up with your email list. That being said, I mean, there's many more things that you can get as a subscriber, including, helping support the artists that are here. But that you have a lot of workshop tutorials that a lot of, our artists in the past that have come here that we filmed are on there. And they're full of information. And so you're paying what you would pay maybe for one video, you're actually paying, your annual subscriptions, like as if you bought maybe 1.5 videos from most other video platforms. And you get unlimited access to, I think it's close to 26, 27 art tutorial videos, as well as art critique lectures. And one of the things you can do is submit your work, and I do a monthly critique on people's work. And so you can submit it, and I do a live once a month thing where I'll like Photoshop and work on it and show you what you can fix and what can be helpful for you. And it's a blast. I really enjoy it. It's a way for me to connect with my audience, these folks. So find what you can afford and what you enjoy, and but the reference images are free. Please take them.
And our next question, what's your favorite ground and support for commission work?
I usually paint on aluminum composite material, which is ACM panel. You can buy it at any sign supply store, and almost every city has a sign supply store. I mean, even the small towns have them. I grew up in a town of 18,000 people, I think is how many people are there now. And I was there and I needed some ACM panel, and there was a tiny little sign supply store, there and went in, because every town needs signs. And he was like, oh, yeah, the back, and just bought some from him. He actually gave it to me for free because it was such a small piece. He's like, oh, that's nothing. I can give it to you for free. So, but that's what I paint on, and I usually use either a gesso ground or a lead alkyd ground onto it.
Do you ever do like an oil alkyd ground?
No, I've not done an oil alkyd ground. Not one that's void of lead.
Yeah. What do you find is the difference between the gesso and the lead alkyd ground? Because I know that I think there was a paint from life where I was like talking to Alex, and Alex had just switched from like a lead alkyd ground to doing a gesso ground, and he found that if he just used the right technique, they felt really similar. But I personally don't ever work on gessoed panels, so I'd love to learn more about it.
So what I would say there is, for me, how I apply the paint is they are similar, but I find that gesso is a slight bit more slippery, and the paint doesn't adhere as easily to it. But it would be minimal for most people. It's probably because I just paint on both of them so much. Mm-hmm. So I actually do like how the paint spreads on a lead ground more, but I like the ease of putting the ground on with gesso. It's just so easy. Yeah. And lead is just slightly more tedious.
So easy. Oh.
So I got to work on my puns. People are far too ahead of me, and I'm not holding up at least my dad joke age.
Yeah, I feel like I just missed out on something just now.
Gesso, easy. Gesso.
It sounds like gesso.
It's
like
gesso.
just so easy.
Gesso. Yeah.
Thank you. Great.
It took me a second too, but then it's like, oh, gotcha. I'm usually the one making the puns around here, mm-hmm. and she made a much better pun than I would make. Mine are like really bad dad joke puns, where you kind of like, you don't even give it a laugh. You're like,
So, Chelsea, you said you never work on gessoed panels. Do you want to talk about what you like to work on?
I typically work on a Raymar panel, which is, I think it's a double oil primed surface. If I were making my own ACM panels, which I have in the past, I've either adhered that same Clausen's linen that has the oil primer already on it, or I would do the lead alkyd ground. I have never actually just gessoed something. And I typically don't prime like canvas. I will buy canvas pre-primed and then put it on a panel if I want that linen texture on there. I cannot elaborate on why. just that like the artists that I've learned from typically use these surfaces or these grounds, and that's what they recommended, so that's what I do.
That was a good answer.
It works.
Yep.
And Tina, I know you're drawing currently, but do you want to talk about what you typically work on?
Yeah, so usually I use either hardboard panels, which I'm trying to shy away from because they are a little bit more fragile, especially in the corners. And usually when I get them ordered, at least one of them has a bent corner. So I'm trying to lean away from that and go towards the ACM route because those are more archival. So I usually use the ACM panel and then I'll prime it myself. I usually use about 4 or 5 coats of gesso, and that usually gets it pretty smooth as long as you apply it thinly. And then I like to tone my panel also, but you can also sand it since it is gesso and it's not a lead ground, so it's safe to sand without like a ventilator, but I would still do it outside so that way you're not like breathing in all the gesso dust and stuff. But yeah, I usually just use gesso on ACM panels.
And Cookie says the tutorials are excellent. I've watched some already as a subscriber. Thanks so much, Cookie.
Oh, that makes me
They
so happy.
are pretty incredible as someone who has benefited a lot from them myself.
Yeah. People always ask me like, oh, where did you study? Because I went to a university, but I'm like, I feel like I can't credit them. I have to credit East Oaks, their video library, because they basically taught me so much.
So as you guys are going in and starting to fill out the face and get into a little bit more detail, do you want to talk about how, sort of like your sketch that you started with initially really impacts the building blocks of what you're building towards? Do you want to talk about like where your thought process is currently?
I am working on getting the eyes to work and I need to make sure that my values are connecting and that I'm not keying too bright. It's a bad habit that I tend to do. So I need to make sure that I'm connecting my lights with my darks. And so I have to keep stepping back and making sure that my values are working.
Yeah, at this stage, I'm barely starting to like do the same thing. I'm trying to like work out the drawing of the eye while still working out the color of the eye, because with these kind of like faster sessions, it's a challenge to kind of get it all in. So right now I'm working on a few of the drawing things while actually adding a few of the color things in as well when I'm carving it out.
What would you say the difference is between inadvertently keying something too light and intentionally staying high key and like reserving your darks and being able to like punch up that contrast at the end? Because I know Louis will often paint really high key to start and then go deeper. So tell me, like, I'm really genuinely curious to hear more about that.
So if I key too bright, then I have too much contrast between my light and my shadow. And so my shadow that I've established and then my light that I've established, like they're too far apart. And so it might happen that like it could work if I would have keyed something else differently. So I either need to key dark or key light. And it just changes the harmony.
I see.
And so, and that just comes sometimes. It's like I get excited about something. I'm like, oh, it's so bright, I gotta do it bright. Or oh, it's like rich and dark, I'm gonna make it dark. And I have to like remember to close that gap sometimes. And yep, that's where I'm at. But it's important because, if I, for example, I need to darken probably on my cheek here, I'm starting to put information into the eye, and I am finding that this cheekbone is just standing out too much when I want it to turn back into space a bit. And so I just need to darken it. It's just in order for the other part of my painting to read.
Yeah.
It's better to like darken that cheek than to brighten everything else. It's like, so it ends up being that kind of play. And the more you do it, the quicker you can figure out these things, but sometimes you just got to put it down and then realize, I need to do it again.
Alex Tabbitt has joined and says, shout out to Tina. I've been really loving your work and seeing your progress.
Thank you, Alex. Alex is super sweet. We first started becoming friends. I don't even remember how, but from East Oaks for sure. And I remember we would like chat about like whatever workshop we were watching at the moment. And it's been really amazing to see him grow too as an
Yeah.
artist, because now I think he's with Vanessa Roth in, I think, Los Angeles, somewhere in California if not. So it's been awesome to see his growth. And I know Louis, you know his work too.
I do, yeah.
So it's been,
Because he's been a part of V6 for a long time.
yeah.
So he needs to come visit.
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be a lot of fun to have Alex over. You
Yeah.
could do a painting from life with us one night.
Oh. It's good. We got to make it happen. I know
Yep.
California's a long way away, but
Well, if you ever find your way on the East Coast,
yeah.
you'll have to just make this a pit stop. Free place to stay. We usually have a good time when artist family come in town.
Yeah, it's just an excuse to have a dinner party.
Yeah, exactly.
He says that would be so cool to visit you guys. You're such an inspiration. Yeah, come down. We'd love to meet you. And our next question, Cookie asks, is it possible to paint alla prima without any solvents?
Yes.
I found it, yes, okay, immediate. They say, I found it impossible so far as the canvas gets too oily. In parentheses, I use oleogel. And this has been a problem for me as I'm allergic to solvents.
Ooh.
I try to live that solvent-free life. The only areas that I find that I need it is if I'm doing the imprimatura on my canvas. And so, other than that, I try not to use solvent. It can be done. If you're struggling to get the paint to move and you don't want to add medium, whether it's oil or anything, try switching your ground. Try to change what you're painting on, because that'll make a lot of difference for how the paint slides onto the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely possible. You might have to adjust some of your technique, or what you're painting on, but it's definitely possible. I'm doing it right now.
So am
There you
I.
go.
So there you have it, folks.
Yeah. And maybe try a different, like if you're using gesso and you're finding that you're having issues, maybe try a different brand of gesso, because a lot of them have differences in like tooth and absorbency. Like I used a Utrecht one that was just not great for me. It was just too toothy and it was like too absorbent. So I'm really happy with the golden gesso. I feel like it glides a lot easier, and I feel like that might be a nice option.
I use a lead alkyd ground, and I like it a lot because I find I can apply paint on the canvas and it doesn't dry immediately. It doesn't. I can move it around and I don't have to add anything, and that's actually why I use it, because again, I'm trying not to have to add too much to my paint. Personally.
I will also say the substrate itself, rather than the ground, can impact the absorbency. So, I don't know what kind of canvas you're working on. If it's cotton, there's your problem. Don't work on cotton. It's so absorbent. So if that's the case, switch it up. And yeah, hopefully that'll help a bit. And with that, we are at our next model break.
No.
Already?
Sorry.
Everybody's like,
No.
So with that, we'll be back in just a few short minutes. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and keep sending in your questions. This is really fun. Thanks, y'all. This is our second to last session. Keep the questions coming while you can, and thank you so much for joining. Let's see, Denise asks, what are on your palettes?
Nothing.
I have more on my palette, but I'm not using all of it. I'm using ultramarine, I am using a bit of transparent red oxide. What is this? It's a purple. What do you use?
Violet? Manganese
My
violet?
brain is not working.
It's okay.
Manganese violet. I have a little bit of alizarin crimson, but I have to say I'm not using tons of those. They're just kind of to tint. I have vermilion and yellow ochre, Naples yellow dark, or genuine Naples yellow dark, and lead white.
I have a lot of those colors too. No, I was kidding.
I wonder why I have those colors.
Yeah, I have Naples yellow, lead white, lead tin yellow, alizarin crimson, manganese violet, French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, and then oxide red and yellow, and raw sienna. That's it.
Do you typically work with the same palette sort of consistently, or does it really vary depending piece to piece, or like whether you're working indirectly or directly?
I consistently use the same palette. I might be experimenting with another color for the fun of it, which I'd like to do a lot. But for the most part, I consistently use the same palette.
I might switch out a blue. For example, depending on what I'm painting, I might not always use cobalt, but because it's a face, I'll add cobalt. Just because I like how it neutralizes some skin tone things, and but it just depends. And then I might use magenta, quinacridone magenta, depending on, for example, if I'm painting a flower, I love quinacridone magenta, but it doesn't always make sense for the face unless she's wearing something, or, you know, the lighting situation or whatever. So there's a bit of flexibility where I'll add a color, take away a color. For example, I don't use cadmium yellow for the face because it's too acidic for how I tend to paint. And so, but I'll use it for painting a flower. You know, there might be like an interchange here and there.
I really like that description of cad yellow as acidic. I haven't thought about that before, but it's a perfect descriptor.
And as always, it's not like you can't use it. It's just like it just tends to kind of create, and kind of make my yellows more chromatic. When for skin, I like to kind of adapt my palette. If something's high chroma, then I'll try to add higher chroma pigments. And if something's more muted, then I'll choose, for example, Naples yellow over cadmium yellow because it's already more muted.
Bruce asks, can you speak a bit on softening edges, and if you have stages of your alla prima painting, you will always focus on edge work?
Well, I always feel like, at least for me, when once I kind of get a drawing down and start working on things, I tend to make too hard edges. And so I like to kind of soften on breaks. I like to go in and think about softening edges because on most all of it, just because it kind of helps you not be committed to maybe a mistake you had made that you felt that you didn't see, and it helps you kind of reset your mind. So I find that to be very helpful.
I find it helpful to also think that edges can be a value thing and not just a paint application thing. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes if an edge is coming forward, it's because my values are too far apart and I need to change something. So for example, I have a lot of sharp edges on this cheekbone and I need to have a transition between my forehead and the hair, and so that's something where I'm like, okay, if the edge is coming forward, that's why.
Good answer. Good answer.
love how you have like a perfect heart shape by the collarbone.
Oh, you know I'm gonna have to change that.
Aww.
So it's not a perfect heart. I'm so good at creating like perfect symmetry somewhere, like somehow make perfectly parallel lines. Gotta fight that.
Let's see, one more pigment question. When would you choose to use transparent red oxide instead of an opaque red?
I like to use transparent red oxide, for example, towards the darks, where I want the darks to be more transparent and warm. And then in a more opaque area, like the face and skin towards the light, I want that to be more opaque, and so I'll use vermilion or something like that. But transparent red oxide is great for tinting as well, and so there's not a rule that you can't use one in one area, one in another. It's just you can adapt to the qualities of the paint where you want them to be. Anybody else have any idea with that?
I would have the same answer, I think.
And if anyone ever wants to learn how to make your own red oxide pigment, I'm going to be doing a lecture series on how to harvest and synthesize natural pigments and lake pigments. Release date TBD.
That'll be so cool.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Our next question is from Denise, who asks, do you guys always paint the background the color that the model is in front of, or do you like to change it up?
Well, I usually like to adjust it slightly. I don't paint from life a whole lot, but like I did a flower painting recently where it was like more of a yellow creamy rose, and the background that I had used is more of like a gray, pretty close to the one we have on the model right now. And I changed the background to more of a purple lilac-y because I felt like it would go well with the yellow. So I usually take creative liberty and try not to stick too hard to what is actually real, because again, that's the kind of the point of making a painting. You're trying to make it a little bit more interesting or a little bit prettier than what actually exists in real life.
I see, I think Lewis's background currently is a bit cooler and Erica's a bit warmer, although they're really kind of like the same value. So it's always interesting to see, like, having different artists paint simultaneously, what are some of the temperature choices that they make, and it's just a stylistic thing and kind of dependent on the individual.
And sometimes it just depends on like the purpose. So for example, I already made the face pretty, like, I put a lot of color in it, so I need to mute the background in order for the face to, come forward from the background. And so I try to mute the background a little bit for that purpose, to create that relationship between foreground and background. But conversely, you can, as an example, I don't know if this is what you're doing, but you can use you can make the background cooler and more blue in order for the warm to pop in the skin tone. So, you know, there's a bit of adaptability.
And sometimes it could be a ratio thing that you're trying to hit. In my case, I've kind of overshot the ratio, being a little bit more blue than it should. Those things where at this moment I'm more worried about other things in the painting. So yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's like decision was made.
The decision was made. That's what it was.
I'm
And you're going to move
rolling
on. You know.
I got to work on this cheekbone.
So as we're kind of like reaching sort of the end of the process for this alla prima session, what are some of the hierarchical things that you guys are trying to prioritize as you're finishing up?
I'm thinking about values and
Thinking about paint.
and drawing. Right now, like some things are going to require a second session.
Yes.
That's a nice way of putting it. Like, I'm not an alla prima painter, you know? Like, other than the roses, like, I don't usually, these are my way, this is my way of studying alla prima. So. She doesn't even have a nose yet. Oh my gosh.
For those of you painting along, could y'all maybe speak a little bit about how practicing with alla prima sessions from life can help inform, you know, your other studio practice if painting alla prima isn't necessarily your normal go-to?
Why do I keep doing this?
I know.
It's so useful to keep up my portrait skills. It's useful to help myself consolidate my decision making, where, you know, if you have to do it in 3 hours, you have to make decisions, and sometimes it's for better or worse, but then you know at least, you know, we were talking about failure earlier, then you fail forward. So
Right.
it's great to change up the pacing. It's great to practice different skin tones and seeing different lighting, and also just in general applying the paint and trying to create a interesting, you know, sometimes we are too literal. I am too literal when I'm painting, and so I have to think about how can I create interesting shape design with how I'm applying my paint, and I have to consolidate it quickly, and so it is a great practice with that as well.
No, I think everything you said is spot on to me too. Because I mean, I'm most certainly in practice. I'm not an alla prima painter, but find that it also is it's a speed exercise. Like chess players will limit their time to like a 2-minute game, what they call bullet chess, which is the same idea of just like doing speed training, just like an athlete would. And so speed training helps you think about what you're visually looking at in a different way than you would if you were just slowing down. And it helps speed up your slow process as well.
Exactly.
So there's like multiple reasons why I think it can be incredibly, incredibly good for you. And you just got to be okay with just being like, you know what, that time fell flat on my face, and I'm going to just go on to the next one and try it out.
Just because you make a bad painting doesn't mean you're a bad painter.
That's right.
It's great, like full circle.
Yeah.
just like we were talking about earlier.
It's good to reiterate because it's a hard thing to learn.
And it's not like, I'm not joking about it. Like it's not fun.
No,
to mess up.
it's not.
It's not like I'm like so happy with this. No, I'm not. But you just got to keep learning from it. And the more you do it, the more you learn.
And, it's also a healthy reminder that no matter how many years you've got under your belt, or no matter how many accolades you have, being an artist means being a forever student of the world and being a forever observer. And, that comes with a little bit of everything. It's a lot of success. It's a lot of failure. It's, it's humbling.
Yeah.
Let's see, we have another paint/pigment question from Antiotti, who says, I have experienced that mixture of titanium and chalk putty that works similar to lead white paint. It is transparent, preserves color, and most importantly, stops titanium from darkening. Are there any cons to using chalk in paint?
That sounds like a good question for the Natural Pigments website. I
Yes.
feel like they might have a lot of resources on
George
that.
O'Hanlon will know.
Yeah. If he doesn't, then he'll know someone who does.
Yep.
But they have a really good Facebook group also. I think it's just Painting Best Practices, where they have like a bunch of people who have asked questions, and you can either ask your own question or you can search and see what questions have been asked before. And there's a few like admin people and mods on there, and George O'Hanlon is one of them, and they're like always happy to ask or answer those kinds of questions. Because I'm not sure.
Not laughing.
No, I know. I want to know what
I was
you're
laughing because Alex Tabbitt said, Lewis breaking out the chess talk. Little does he know he's talking about it to the next Magnus Carlsen, aka me. As someone who cohabitates with a lovely chess nerd, I know who you're talking about, and that makes me happy.
Aww.
So many chess videos during quarantine. It was a lot.
Oh, that, yeah.
Also, just as a little follow-up to that previous question, what you were talking about with titanium white pigment sort of sinking, we refer to that as flashing. And it is not fun to have to deal with, which is why lead is a good alternative, although many people, have their own hang-ups about working with lead. But if you're amenable to it, try lead. It's great.
This has been medical advice for you.
Yeah. Public service announcement.
We need that as a soundbite.
Okay, and with that, we are at our last model break. So, yeah, last chance. If y'all have any questions, go ahead and get those sent in, and we will be back shortly in a few minutes for our final session. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, we are back for our final session of the evening. Thank you so much for tuning in, and send me any questions you want answered. And yeah, thanks so much for joining.
This is where everyone gets really quiet. Because it's like, this is it. This is the last chance I got.
It's so funny.
High stakes meeting.
Not switchering and realizing like how quiet you exactly need to be during this last session. It's going to be hard to carry a conversation while you're like, oh my God.
Yep.
I
But
need
you're
to
doing
fix
great.
this.
Keep going. Keep going.
Well, just because this is honestly a great question, and because I love you all so much, Dalen says, I don't know if this has been asked before, but what are your guys' opinions on the rise of AI art and the effect it may have on traditional painters?
Ooh, that's a tough question at the end here.
I try not to think about it.
I think it'll never get rid of what we do. It'll completely alter from now on what we do. And it's, to some degree, it's not going away. So we have to learn to like understand how to pivot around it and be okay with it. I like to think about the fact that there was a time period when photography was like the new thing. It was what AI is now, and there were people that were like, it's going to destroy art, and to some degree, I mean, artists were rock stars because they were color television back then. You know, like there was no TV or anything, so like if you wanted to see what Africa looked like, you would commission, you know, if you were wealthy, you'd commission a painter to go to Africa and paint the scene, because otherwise you wouldn't know what the color of it would look like, or maybe you had somebody that you hired to go with you on this like safari so that you could like capture the memory of it. And so like there was a point where artists were crucial, and photography did take away a little bit of that, but it didn't make us obsolete. It made it have a pivot with what it meant to be a painter, and it ended up having a totally different meaning. The same with like piano and like, you know, digital music, or when the record player came along, you know, they thought it was going to get rid of people wanting to create music, and it actually in a way increased it, but it did decrease the piano sales for people having them in their home, you know. So like it will affect in some ways, but I don't think that will never become obsolete.
Unless capitalism destroys us all, so.
Woo!
Sorry, making
On that hopeful note.
that was like left field. You know?
Yep.
That was a big
the
step
optimist.
jump from AI.
That was not a leap. That was not a leap in the slightest.
Well, I think I agree with Louis in the sense that, you know, there's no replacing the hand of the artist and the tangibility of an art object versus, you know, a digitally AI produced image. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens the next few years. But yeah, I think painting and painting by hand and traditional art as a genre is going to be arguably even more important because of it.
I think AI is just amazing, because I was scrolling on TikTok earlier today and I found a account. It's called AI Concerts, and it was a full concert of the full cast of SpongeBob animated. Gary the Snail was singing Everlong by Foo Fighters, and it was a full AI cover of that, and it was amazing. It really changed
What people can do with it.
Yeah, it was great. I'll have to show you guys.
The choices people make.
Oh.
Someone put a lot of time into that, I think.
Cookie says, I absolutely love Erica's roses.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
For those who have not seen, Erica made a series of Alla Prima roses, and you did a dozen, correct?
I did, yes.
And they are all stunning. If you haven't seen them, go hop over to her website and take a peek. Super gorgeous.
EricaCutieFineArt.com.
EricaCutieFineArt.com.
Shameless plug.
No.
Do it.
Plug away.
Before the machines take your job.
Ever the optimist.
And Alex asks, do you guys have any tips for finding gallery representation / making a living from selling your work?
My advice is always to, well, this was the advice that I was given from Richard Murdoch, who is a painter living in Chicago. He has some really cool work, but email galleries that carry artists that you respect and that you want to paint like, and reach out to them, even if they have that whole "we don't take artist submission emails," like that whole disclaimer thing. Richard Murdoch says that's to weed out the weak ones. So bypass that, ignore that completely, send them the email anyway. If they're interested in your work, they won't ignore it, because obviously they want to represent artists that they think are good and that they can sell. So find galleries that you really resonate with, that your artist heroes are maybe showing with. And if you think that your work is close to their caliber, send the email. The worst they can do is say no or not answer you at all, which also happens, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, it's actually good to develop a good thick skin about that kind of thing anyway. So.
My personal mantra for, things like that is really, you do miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So yeah, go ahead, jump on it. If you're not going to believe in yourself, then why should anybody else, just do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
I like how that was Michael Jordan, that was Nike.
Sports.
Good stuff.
Yeah, but it's true. And honestly, I feel like most of them really like that the initiative that you're taking, of taking the risk and sending your work to them. I feel like they're usually pretty appreciative of that.
Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of, you can't just wait for it to happen. No one's going to do it for you, kind of thing.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Please, somebody do.
AI, maybe?
That's what it really needs to do.
Yeah.
Just that meme of like Obi-Wan with Anakin, at the end of. Okay, I'm just gonna stop.
With the lightsabers?
Like
the
when
meme.
when
They're like, it's dark and they're like on either side. I know nothing about Star Wars. One of them has blue, one of them has red.
Are you talking about where he's in the lava and he's like looking up at him? Yeah, okay. I hear you. I'm tracking.
I'm with Tina. I'm like, I'm trying to think of the memes
One of
that I've
them's red.
seen.
I think that's the bad one.
I think that's bad.
I hope
One of
I'm
them's
wrong
red.
about that.
That's awesome.
Cookie asks, do you do commission portraits from photos or only from life?
I do both. It's two different price points and it's two different, I almost call them like products. They're two different things that you can get. So I actually price my, I price my live ones cheaper, even though they're harder to do and take more time in some ways, in some respects, than I do the ones from photo, because I enjoy doing it more, and I enjoy being a part of the experience with the family, and I think that the family actually typically enjoys the experience of like watching the progress of all of this happen, So yes, I tend to like to do it from life, but I do both.
How often do you do one versus the other? What's the breakdown or ratio?
That's a really good question. Probably 50-50.
Nice.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that really enjoy the fact that I do it from life. So, like I'm going to deliver several paintings at home, and I'm going to do a live sitting while I'm home as well. When I say home, I mean like my childhood home. So.
Louis, do you have any advice for artists who are trying to widen their clientele for commission portraits?
You know, I think that a biggest thing is like we were saying earlier, just go ahead and ask all of your family, friends, somebody that's in your family that you think would enjoy sitting for you, and actually get a portfolio, because people don't have vision like you do of what you're capable of, and so you have to show them. So at first I would say you have to make sure you at least have something to show. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to like just, I mean, when I first started, I don't know if I would do this as an older person, but when I was younger, I would just take I would paint pastel and drawings, and I would just go to the coffee shop. And I would take them on any family vacation, and I would paint on the beach. And believe it or not, I would get commissions at both places all the time. And so that was helpful. That really kind of like helped me kind of get going. But yeah, I would say do those things, and also know what your strengths are. Maybe if your strengths are people skills, like if I really enjoy talking to people, I'm an extrovert, and that's not common in the art world, I would feel like. And so like, if that's not your strength, then you need to pivot and go a different way, Some people are really a lot better at social media than I am. I don't do a lot of social media, even though I probably should. But yeah, you lean into your strengths, I think, is a big point that I'm trying to make there.
Well, I think we've got about 1 minute left.
Oh.
There always comes that point.
Yep.
So yeah.
All right, so
TikTok.
Just put in a little bit of the shirt in then.
And again, for those of y'all out there who are painting along with us using the reference images, if you want to post your paintings and tag East Oak Studio, we would love to see what you're working on. Yeah, reach out, get in touch. We would love to see your work. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you for all your questions. And we will be back again for another PFL session next month.
Yes, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. As always, it's such a pleasure, and one of our fun joys that we get to have y'all join us and work from life, have good conversations, enjoy hearing what people are doing and where. But always check in, sign up with East Oak Studios email list. If you haven't yet already, we make announcements there, and when we're planning on doing other things, and we'd love to see you. If you have feedback on anything, we'd love to hear that too. So thank y'all, everyone. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Thank you.